The unprecedented pace of disruption and uncertainty makes leadership more relevant today than ever before. It's not position or power, but your leadership skills that help you to think in unique, creative ways. When faced with a crisis, a leader is forced to think and make critical decisions. A leader who empowers a team and gives the employees accountability increases the effectiveness of an organization. John Maxwell said that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Warren Bennis said leadership is the capacity to turn vision into reality. And Bill Gates has this to say about leadership. As we look ahead into the next century, leaders will be those who empower others. Today, I have the honor of having a thought leader, Johanna Rothman. A warm welcome to you, Johanna.
Thank you so much. I really am quite happy to be here.
Johanna Rothman is known as a pragmatic manager and offers frank advice for your tough problems. She helps leaders and teams see and adapt how they solve problems, resolve risks, and manage their product development. Johanna was the Agile 2009 conference chair and was the co-chair of the first edition of the Agile Practice Guide. Johanna is the author of 18 books that range from hiring to project management, program management, project portfolio management, and management. Her most recent books are the Modern Management Made Easy series, From Chaos to Successful Distributed Agile Teams with Mark Kilby, and Create Your Successful Agile Project, Collaborate, Measure, Estimate, Deliver. You can read her blogs, email, newsletters, and more information about her books on her website. I am so happy to have you today on the show, Johanna. So let me begin by asking you, what do you think are 3 important traits that a project manager or leader should have to thrive in a disruptive economy?
So specifically for project managers, I see the leadership needs to be in what is the direction we are going in? How can we clarify the purpose or the goal of this particular project? Every project is in service of a product or a service. And in software, a lot of our projects are often, well, our products, we hope, live and live and live and live. But the project is an instantiation of the purpose for now. So if a project manager can help facilitate the team understanding that purpose, that's a really big thing. And notice it's a facilitation thing. It's not, I'm going to decide this all by myself. No, not even with a product manager or product owner or whatever. It has to be a team-based thing. And then the next thing the project manager does is help the team understand what done means. So that's the release criteria. So if you know the direction and you know when you get there, now you have a pretty good shot of actually accomplishing what you want to do. And the third thing is all about teamwork and working as a team to finish the work. I really like your words behind you, because I see teamwork there, and I think of it as flow efficiency. So how do we make our wait states? How do we reduce our wait states for what we need from each other? And how do we work together as a team?
Yeah, coming to a crisis response, how does a leader respond to a crisis? And what are the most important parts of crisis response, effective crisis response?
So we're recording this in the age of COVID.
Yeah.
Um, and and what's very interesting to me, and I live in the United States, so everyone in the world can see our data. Everyone in the world can see our our each state's approach to how we're managing the crisis. And the states that have um, the most transparency from the leaders, from the governors, are actually doing well. The states that look at the data, the real honest to God data, that they're doing well. And the states that where the governors thank other people for doing their jobs, I'm going to get back to the thanking in a minute. They're all doing well. The governors who blame people, and our president is very big on blame. Blame does not get you anywhere. It feels good in the moment. Okay, if you're like me, it feels very good in the moment, but it's not a long-term strategy for success. So notice that if we use data to make decisions, that means we have to gather the data. We have to know what data we need, and it has to be relatively easy for us to gather. Um, if you're transparent about the decisions and you say, we're making this decision for this reason, that's a way to lead in crisis. And then this business about thanking other people, when you publicly thank somebody for doing a job and they didn't actually do it all that well, they are much more likely to do it better the next time because
True.
you've already thanked them. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe transparency, trust, and gratitude will always go a long way in establishing confidence among the people here. So, taking care of a team as a leader, how do you keep your team motivated and connected during a crisis?
So there's a simple question you can ask. What can I do for you? Now this is different from what do you need from me, right? But what can I do for you is a different kind of an offer. You should probably ask, what do you need from me? Because people always need stuff, right? They need lab equipment, they need more monitors, they need better internet access, all that. But what can I do for you? That's a different offer. And not everybody will take you up on that at the very first time you ask, which is why you have to keep up the one-on-ones. And then you can say in every one-on-one, what can I do for you?
Yeah, that sounds more sincere and genuine coming from a leader. Like,
Yeah.
in terms
Oh,
of,
and then you have to
yeah,
follow through.
correct. Following up is also
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
And how do you support them during? How do you support them? If they ask for some help?
So the real question is, am I the person who needs to help? Do I need to arrange for some kind of training, often for the entire team? What is it that I need to do to enable the help? Maybe it's just connecting a person over here with a person over there, right? That might be it. It might be creating a community of practice. It might be working on reinforcing the notion of flow efficiency, that the team works together as a team.
I'll come to challenges in your history. What is the biggest challenge that you have faced as a project manager?
So, I for those of you who don't know, Sajeev emailed me this list of questions, and I thought, I faced a whole bunch of different challenges as a project manager. So I'm not sure which is the biggest challenge. I think that if I faced challenges about technical risk where we were just not sure how we were going to actually solve this problem. Was it even solvable given the computers and this was a machine vision application, um, given the computers and the cameras at the time? We did find a solution, but we had to experiment our way through it. And then I faced a lot of other challenges as a project manager with, and almost all those challenges were people based, not because people were trying to be difficult. I walked into an organization as a contract project manager, and for the very first meeting, I gathered everybody. I said, I want to introduce myself. I want to see where you are. I would like to see a demo of the software. I sat down in a chair in the conference room, and somebody said to me, "You can't sit there." Okay. So I stood up and said, "May I sit in this next chair?" They said, "Yeah, that's fine." So I asked, because I'm kind of blunt and direct, why can't I sit there in the original chair? Well, that was the architect's chair. He had a heart attack and died
Oh,
3 months ago. And so nobody sits in his chair. I thought, oh, that's really the issue. These people have not addressed their loss. No one has said to them, no one has used any empathy with them and said, what do you what can I do for you? What do you need? How can we move past this? Because you cannot get past this until you acknowledge it.
true.
So I actually led a little appreciation session, sort of a temperature reading, and said, you know, we let's do this for now. I will figure out other stuff to do today. Um, and then maybe we can come back tomorrow and address the project goals and the release criteria because these people needed to mourn as humans,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So that's a big challenge. And then there have been plenty of other challenges where the senior managers over here didn't agree with the senior managers over there, and we didn't have a real goal. Yeah, I mean, those are actually easier to deal with. Well, for me.
true. Now, today, it's very possible that I am interviewed for a role through a virtual meeting, and I go to and I'm selected, and I'm told to work from home. And I don't see my colleagues. I don't know my team. I have to meet them virtually, maybe in a stand-up meeting online. And so, how does one get to establish rapport with team members and other stakeholders through effectively through a virtual meeting?
So right now, in the time of COVID-19, we're not getting together at all in person. However, I hope in early 2021, maybe we will be able to do that. Because I mean, Mark Kilby and I wrote that From Chaos to Distributed Agile Teams book. And we always recommend that the team get together, preferably at the beginning of the project, from wherever they are in the world, to work together for at least a week or two. When you see people face to face, I mean, Zoom is great. We're face to face. You can see my books. You can see. I hope that you don't hear the lawnmowers outside, but you probably did. Right, I live in my house. You can see a little bit of my mess over here. Yeah, so so we can learn about each other as humans, but when we learn together in person, we have a much better, it's much easier to learn what each other's foibles are like. Um, so you and I had lovely interactions beforehand, right before this meeting.
Yes.
And I said to you, I'm going to create a calendar invitation. I live and die by my calendar. I mean, I an email notice is lovely and not enough for me. When one of the guys who puts together webinars actually said, "It's good to know your API, Johanna." Right? My API, my applications program interface, is through my calendar. So, and I'm really blunt about that. I tell people that so that they know. But I'm sure that there's other stuff I'm not saying to you. And we don't get that unless we have a chance to work together. So if we have to work separately, which we do right now, then we need to always turn on our cameras so that we have the music and the words. We need to be able to take a little time before and after the meeting to to actually say, how are you as a
Yes,
human? I really like a check-in for
correct.
that. We had a little check-in when we started, right before
Yes,
you started to record. Um, we might need to be able to discuss all kinds of things as part of a team. So if you and I were part of a team and we were trying to finish a product, right? Finish this particular project in service of a product, you and I might say, well, you might ask me, Johanna, do you think you can meet at 8 a.m.? So I'm not meeting at 9 p.m. my time. And I would flex for you. Right, I would do that for you for at least a few days out of the week because
true.
you're my teammate and we need to work together and we need to do this when you're not totally exhausted and when I'm awake. So so we build in resilience by making little accommodations to each other. Not big accommodations. I'm not going to start to work during your day. You're not going to start to work during mine, but we can flex a little, we can give a little bit, and that makes for a better team outcome. So that trust, that empathy with each other, our resilience as a team, all of that really it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I see the positives of Zoom, I mean virtual meetings and all, but the face-to-face co-location is also, we miss this type of human interaction, face-to-face interaction, wherein we can get to know a person much more intimately. Yes. Many companies around the world were taken by surprise at the beginning of this year when the COVID-19 pandemic struck. So how does one actually preempt such a type of a risk and factor it into their risk management plan? Or
So I don't think you can preempt this kind of a risk. I mean, this is extraordinary in every dimension. So I mean, just as an example, I started my business in 1994 and I started to travel in 1995. And since 1995, I guess I might only have taken a trip every other month that year. But ever since 95 or 96, right, substantially over 20 years, I have traveled at least 12 to 14 times a year. And many years it was much more than that. And I'm not doing that now. Now, this is really good for my diet. It's really good for my exercise, right? I'm probably healthier now than I've been in a long time. But this is not normal for any of us. How could any of us have foreseen this? So what's really important is not so much to foresee, but to build adaptability and resilience into our management, into our leadership, into the way we make decisions, which for me goes back to all the agile approaches. How small a decision can I make? For how short a time? And when do I need to see data so I can make another decision? Right? Small chunks delivered fast. And this is whether you're a manager, leader, or a technical person, and then reassess that adaptability and resilience and the exploration of new possibilities. I think that that's how we preempt in quotes this
yeah,
kind of a risk.
yeah, most of the people agree that it's very difficult to preempt such a risk. I mean, there have been tsunamis and cyclones and earthquakes all over the world, and there are disaster recovery programs, and business continuity planning is there. Many companies have it in place. So, but this was entirely out of out of the blue, I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
Next question is, what do you see as a future for project managers?
So I actually think that there's a great future for project managers as long as they are facilitative project managers, right? So command and control every so often. So if you're in an emergency, yes, you say, please do this now, and then let's exit the building. They're totally reasonable. But most projects do not exist in a perpetual state of emergency. So I think that project managers who understand how to facilitate the team so the team can do its best work, that they can facilitate all the people around the team. Sometimes project managers are, I call them the wall around the team, because managers are um, unwise in some of their requests. So, so we need somebody to protect the team so that the team can do their work. But I think that um, the more the team works together and the more the project manager facilitates that work, the better off that everyone is. So I see the project manager as much more of a facilitative role, not somebody who gets stepped on, right? That's not this kind of servant leadership I'm talking about. I'm talking about leading with empathy, understanding the people, protecting the environment, creating and protecting the environment in which every person can do their best work.
Absolutely. Bringing out the best in the team members. Yeah.
Yeah. And so individually and as a team.
That's nice. And do you have finally any words of advice for youngsters who wish to step into this profession and take up a career in project management?
So a lot of people have asked me over the years, what do project managers need to know? And my one thing that they need to know, they need to understand the risk and the dynamics of the system where they are managing projects. So for example, I have a ridiculous number of years of project management experience, right? I mean, I've been managing projects since my mid-20s, and God, that's almost 40 years ago. Oh, fine. Yeah, I don't know if people are going to see this. I have gray hair and I am proud of it. So what's common about that is, while I might have opinions about the construction for our remodels for the houses that we've lived in, I am not capable of managing a construction project. I have over 40 years of project management experience. I cannot do construction. I can do software. I can do hardware. I can do mechanical. I can do a combination of all three. But I am not capable of doing construction. That's because construction has a lot of iteration on requirements at the very beginning, and then you go into delivery, right? And then you reassess what's happening almost every day on the ground. But you only make little changes. Whereas in all of the other kinds of engineering projects, we learn as we go. So the learning is constant during the project. The risks are different than construction. Will construction still have risks? Absolutely. But the risks are quantitatively and qualitatively different for any kind of knowledge work. And that's the part that makes the difference. So if you are young in your career, learn something really well. If you're a developer or tester or an engineer of some sort, learn how to do that work first. Understand the risks and the dynamics from the actual doing of it. Now, you can take that knowledge and become a great project manager.
It was a real pleasure speaking to you, Johanna, and I must appreciate all those answers. You have answered so many of my questions, and I'm sure you have answered many of the questions that project managers have